on health and healing, as this has been our service. She would visit us for care and restoration, and we would visit her and Dina for spiritual health and restoration. Yamuna impacted our life on the deepest level by her intense love and connection to Srila Prabhupada, by her sincere yearning to relish the holy name, and by her never-ending enthusiasm to serve the Lord and all of his devotees. She seemed to have limitless abilities to helping others feel safe, cared for, and honored. This created a natural desire within each person that was in her presence to open their heart and increase their desire to serve Krishna. During our last visit in October, we had many talks about our lives, our journey, and our future. She looked intensely at both of my husband and I, and with an enthusiastic tone repeated a few times, I'm ready to go. And tears welled up in our eyes. She confidently and enthusiastically said, I have a bright future. You have a bright future. We all have a bright future. The day before she left, she called me on Skype, and we had an upbeat and lively conversation about her upcoming visit, in which she said, 7 more days, Noonie. By the way, anyone close with Yamuna knows that she's got plenty of nicknames for her friends. Mine were Nears, Nearmies, Noonies, and Nurse Nears. We then talked about recipes and ingredients she wanted to bring from Alachua. She was so excited. And the next morning was a very different call for Dinatarni Prabhu telling us of her departure. Yamuna left how she desired, no ambulance, hospital, drugs, or fanfare. She quietly and peacefully slipped away, absorbed in her personal bhajan, taking shelter and relishing the holy name as she did her entire life. It is indeed a difficult task to share so briefly the magnitude of who this great soul is. We hope that by coming together this evening, we can all imbibe her enthusiasm for all things Krishna, which is a frequent phrase that she would use. Lastly, I want to share one of the things she wrote when she signed one of her cookbooks for us. Do what you love, and love what you do for Krishna. Thank you very much.
So before we move on to the next segment of our evening, just a moment for reflection, why we have memorials and what this mood of separation and sadness is really for and about. When we lose someone who's close to us, it's a very natural feeling. The soul by nature is affectionate, and there's no way that you can remove that affection from the soul. That's who we are. And when we experience a loss or a separation, it's only going to be natural
that loss is going to cause some suffering, some sadness. But that sadness has too many mics. That sadness has a purpose, and that purpose.
Does this one work? Okay. That sadness serves a purpose for each one of us. Okay, the purpose that it serves is it makes our heart soft. It makes our heart gentle. It helps us to reflect on the important issues of life and death. It helps us understand our position in this world and feel our vulnerability. And ultimately, that sadness transforms and opens up for us a whole world of Krishna consciousness and a mood of devotion that is intensely deeper, having gone through that experience. So when we sit here tonight, many of the devotees may be feeling some sadness. They may a lack of ability to even bring forward some of the words that they'd like to share. But this is just a reminder that that's a healthy thing, ultimately, that we feel these ways. Our devotional life, our sampradaya, is based on the mood of separation from the most intimate pastimes between the Lord and His closest devotees in Vrindavan, through the acharyas and the songs that we hear in the songbooks, down to our own personal lives. And as we age, of course, we're experiencing more and more the intense feelings of separation from people who we very much cared for. So how much more true is that for a great Vaishnava? It's so much more true. And so in that mood of separation, we think and we meditate, what is important for us in these lives? What are the lessons that we want to imbibe? What are the qualities that we want to imbibe? And how much should we be remembering every day and every moment the gifts that Prabhupada gave us, including and especially the association which Srila Prabhupada gave us in the form of his loving devotees. And so that's what we're here to do tonight, is to remember a little bit about a very special devotee, and in that mood also to embrace the value and the wonderful nature of every devotee here in this room, of every devotee we've ever met, of every person who's ever offered obeisances at Krishna's feet, to genuinely be able to appreciate the value of the devotees. For this was Yamuna's mood, I would say, deep to the core. This was so important to her, and we'll talk about this more later, but at the heart of everything is our association and our chance to be grateful for that association and to appreciate each other. So thank you again. Next is, who is Yamuna Prabhu? And I believe those on the back there are ready to give us a little presentation, reflections from the Alachua conference. Yamuna in her own words. Is it ready? Oh, Giri Raj Swami. Yes, Giri Raj Swami first. Excuse me. Yes.
Is it going to be up there?
Yes, it will.
No, it's
Just audio?
You were invited to attend the Vedanta Sammelan in Amritsar. And during the day, when there was some free time, which wasn't that common, but in the afternoon, there was free time, she would place herself in the courtyard. And it was very cold in Amritsar in November. But it'd be a little warmer when the sun came out in the afternoon. And she would just sit cross-legged with her back straight and chant Hare Krishna Maha Japa continuously with her eyes closed, non-stop. And she mentioned to me that when she chanted, her ears and mind and heart just opened up, and the holy name would enter, and she would hear the sound. She would be fully absorbed in the sound, without even thinking that she's chanting the holy names, or these are the holy names, but just absorbed in the sound. And there were only two ladies on the party, Julie and Koshali, and Srila Prabhupada was very protective of that. Bombay, we were invited to attend the Vedanta Sammelan.
On who got up early with Prabhupada. But some of us I took the time personally and indoor to change my schedule around to Prabhupada's schedule. So I got up at 1:30 every day. And there was this wonderful arrangement that our host made. This is just a little side thing that might not be in the biography. Where there was a big iron kettle all around about 5-6 feet across with hot water in it. Remember at the corner of the courtyard? Big courtyard. And we could go over there and there was this fire on at night. So even if it was cold out, this is fall in India, you know about what the temperature is. It's sometimes, changing over a little bit in October, November. Not cold, but a little bit. And so a hot bath is little welcome at 1 in the morning. So I would wait till I heard Prabhupada. So, I'd wait till he went over and got his bath and took his bath. And as soon as he was finished, then I'd head over in the corner and get my bath water. And the arrangement there in the day, of course, we had these non-stop sound kirtan programs like we've been describing. But in the hours between 2 o'clock and Mangalarti, which was pretty much 4:30 every morning, Prabhupada had this small hall. I'd say it's about half the width of this and the same length of this. And he sat up at one end and did his translating work. So one morning after the bath, I just snuck in the other end. So it was as if Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is in the corner there, and I'm sitting up here. So I thought maybe I'll sneak in and he won't see me. So I snuck in and sat down and didn't say a word, just started chanting my japa. After I chanted maybe an hour and a half of japa, then I pulled out, I was studying TLC at that time in the morning. So I pulled out my TLC, and as soon as I pulled out my book, really fast, Prabhupada came over, walked up on his feet, he walked over. I paid my obeisances, and he said, "You finished your rounds?" I said, "Yes." He said, "What are you reading?" And I said, "I'm reading TLC." He said, again, which he said to so many of his disciples, but he said, thank you so much for studying my books. So he wrote, our business obviously has been mandate, the planet, the problem book, but it's also used in studying them, to relish them on a daily basis. And we all from the early days have the injunction that he wanted us, even in that stage, for training Bhagavad Gita, NOD, and TLC every day, every devotee. Do we do that now? Do every day, do all of us do at least that? Because when we live in the Dhams, when we reside in the Dhams, and in fact, aren't every one of our temples to be considered Dhams? They should be holy places where etiquette is there explored and relished. But as we lived in these holy Dhams, we tried to follow certain etiquettes. And I think that what we have to have now to move into the future is a lot of dialogue. It isn't that we'll get a book on what is Vaishnava etiquette and then it's like rubber stamped no matter where we go. Because we always have to take the principles and let them breathe, but never let the principle be watered down or diminished. We want to let them breathe. Let them breathe. Let the essence of something breathe. We jump out at every platform, do kirtan. And have big crowds come around us and probably watch. After we were between Kurukshetra and Delhi, and Srila Prabhupada requested some rice. So at that time I looked at puzzled look and said, "Well, we're on the train. How can I cook rice? Like some hot rice." So I said, "All right, I'll go get some rice." So people, completely, but had no idea how. So we went to the kitchen, and the first person that we met in the kitchen, I remember he was in a pair of shorts, and he had BD stain all in his mouth, and he didn't speak English, and his shorts were all covered in turmeric, and he didn't look like a person I was going to connect well with. So I was figuring out, what are we going to do on this one? So I'm in India now, not very many days, but new towel, and so I'm Guru Maharaj. So somehow I explained to him that we had to have some hot rice for our Guru, and we had to cook it. Oh, no, not possible. He clearly understood, not possible. We said, yes, hot trouble. So when we found out that that was a definite no-show, we said we had to find the head of the kitchen. So he was in another car.
We were running up and down the train.
We were running up and down the train. Time was ticking off. So we had to find the man in the blue suit with a little cap, with little steely blue eyes, who didn't want to do this at all. So I remember that this particular, it was on the Punjabi Mail, and I don't know if who's written on the Punjabi Mail? Well, maybe it doesn't even work anymore, I don't know, but it is a real old train. And I remember that it was, really rattling, how your body rattles all the time. And we were at a door when we were having this conversation with this man, and the door was open, and I was standing with my hands here. So to make it a little emphatic, I said, you either let me cook rice or I'm going to jump off the train. And I was dead serious. And so he was stunned half to death. Do we have a crazy white woman on the train? And I said, I mean it. My Guru Maharaj wants rice now. Okay, very good. You're here, no problem. So Roshalia and I went into the kitchen, and this was for quantity cooking for a train, and the only pot was one of those horrible paper thin aluminum pots. And I've just written an article for Back to Godhead about that. Talk about black spots. There's coal stoves that these people cooked over. So this pot was just, all looked like somebody had taken a ball and hammer to it, just pounded a huge big pot, big old coal stove, and we had to cook this little amount of rice in the oven. But first it took a long time to clean the pot, right? So we took the coal, the ashes, cleaned it up to our elbows, and so somehow or another we cooked the rice. Then we had to carry it through the whole train, all the cattle cars, the whole thing, to get to Prabhupada. And here's his two little daughters. And so we got to his older daughter. And I know those of you that don't know Prabhupada or weren't with Prabhupada, and all of you that were with Prabhupada, you know the look when he opened his eyes really wide and he was really excited, how that's a wonderful look when Prabhupada got his eyes. And I remember when we came in with that plate, those eyes just really big smile, like, what do you have for me there, And we put it down like it was gold. For us, it was, great achievement. And we did, this was like, I think one of the first big tasks he gave me in India. It was like climbing Mount Meru or something, or making a life member. It was the first time that you actually did something big under impossible circumstances, which all Han devotees know about. But this was like our first thing that we did together, I think, as a big service. And then Srila Prabhupada, then he had his little, fried tiffin thing that we brought with it. But he ate a mountain of rice. A mountain, a thali. Bengalis, you know how much Bengali mountains of rice are. This is a mountain of rice, and every morsel, and of course he very lovingly said, oh my God, it was a fortune, and grabbed me, there was, again, the loving reciprocation of, who knows if he even wanted the rice this time, maybe he did. But that wonderful expedition that he sent us off in. So these were the nurturing stages where Prabhupada each started to take us, not only in teams, all the people that were in Bombay didn't get to go to Amritsar. Some were sent to Calcutta to do book work, some were left in Bombay to work. So right from the beginning, he's starting to test the waters on how much each one of us might be able to do, and give us little projects, and then sometimes drop us in the middle of nowhere and say, do it.
He said, so don't think that association with a spiritual master means only personal association. be done and what is not to be done. And in learning how to love each other and how to respect each other. Mostly respect. I think respect is the key to Vaishnava Sadhu-Satsanga on all levels. That we find that way to approach each other and learn to respect each other. Be old devotees, new devotees, this devotees, that devotees, all kinds of, every designation we can conjure up. That we work on this respect principle.
This Sankirtan, not only was our own Sankirtan party getting tighter and tighter, and our relationship sweeter and sweeter. This is another benefit of devotee satsanga. The more you chant together, the more you exchange the 6 symptoms that Prabhupada gave us for love in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. What are those 6 things? Giving and taking prasadam with each other, revealing and hearing minds with each other, and giving gifts and receiving gifts. These is how Vaishnavas exchange love within his company. And the more we did that, the tighter our party became, because through the heartbeat of it, you know if you chant Hare Krishna 6 to 7 hours a day, you're out there. You know, and anybody who's done this on Sankirtan knows where you go, where you chant. If you chant 6 to 8 hours a day, you're not, it's another platform. You're not in the material world, practically speaking.
There was a very difficult situation I went to, and he called for me, and he said, "Do you hear this pounding on the roof?" And at that time, we were constructing our temple out of bricks, not marble or sandstone, but primarily bricks. And with no brains that we had. This is how bad our consciousness was, that we had 25 Kaligars sitting on Prabhupada's roof, chinking bricks all day. This is how low the consciousness was in Vrindavan. 74. Out of the whole land, a whole piece of land, that we put them on Prabhupada's roof, and he said, "Do you hear that noise?" I said, "Yes, Prabhupada." He said, "This society is pounding on my brain like the noise of that roof." When there's discord amongst us and we don't do it in Krishna consciousness, we've got to come to each other with folded hands to figure this out. We've got to beg the lotus feet of Prabhupada. If you have a problem, I'm not involved in this problem, but if you have a problem in trying to understand what's to be done, all of us race over there and sit down and say, let us collectively hear each other chant, try to take what we can of the principles of what Prabhupada has given us in a sane way, where we see that it will not only enliven us, but that others will be attracted to it. Prabhupada wanted this whole world Krishna conscious, and he won't if we're not kind of clear what we're doing with each other.
On who got up early with Prabhupada. So some of us I took the time personally and indoor to change my schedule around to Prabhupada's schedule. So,
I'm not sure if everyone knows, but those pastimes were delivered right here in the temple back in 1996 when we had the women's conference here. So that was Yamuna.
She came specifically to
Oh, it was a different
talk
thing.
about opening the temple.
About opening the temple here. Yes. So that was right here in this temple. And we were very fortunate then, as we are right now. Next up, we're going to have Yogeshwar speaking on Skype. And let me just ask, do you have that ready to go like instantaneously, or should we do something while we're waiting? Okay, so next up, Yogeshwar on Skype.
Hare Krishna.
to say something?
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Yamuna Devi. I'm very honored to have been asked to say something here this evening, and I don't keep thanking Mother Malati and all the other devotees who have worked so diligently to put this memorial together for Yamuna. I won't take long, but I did want to express what I have in my heart. It's been very difficult these last few days. I was 19 years old when I met Yamuna for the first time. I was a student in Paris at the Sorbonne, and at the recommendation of Umalpati Swami, I came to London to visit the temple there. And Yamuna was the first devotee I knew. She was serving lunch out and invited me to sit down, and over the next few weeks, I just realized I've been invited into the company of an extraordinary human being. Everything about her was larger than life. Her voice could go from very delicate and angelic to very deep and loud and profound. And her devotion was larger than life. I would just be mesmerized watching her serve the deities of Radha Ishwara with so much love and devotion. Her heart was larger than life. The care that she expressed for young people like myself coming to the temple then. Her love for Prabhupada was larger than life. At age 19, seeing her just offering her love to Prabhupada was inspiring. I didn't understand it. It was so profound. But I wanted to understand it. So she was very kind and took me under her wing. She and the other devotees there, Shamsundar and Malati and Gurudas and Mukunda and Janaki, they're the reason I'm here now. They adopted me. They took care of me. Yamuna would take me with her to Covent Garden and some of the other places where she had befriended the merchants. And she would just be, I had never seen anyone with such a large presence, floating so delicately. It was like she was almost walking on air. She would be chanting and walking through the stalls and picking up flowers. So everything was larger than life about her. Her cookbook was larger than life. We'll get to that in a minute. But in fact, I'll just go there right away. I lost contact with her after moving from the London temple. But I'll continue on. I hope the connection is okay.
No, it's not. Yogeshwar, because we'll have difficulty hearing you. Might be better if you
Let's make a new connection.
Lost contact for
Restart the call.
several years. And around 1984, works like that. So by doing that,
Okay, so how much time will we have until we can get him back on properly?
We have no idea. It's windstream. We're not
If he can call back in without the video, then
Are you streaming out okay?
Here.
Well, that's we can.
Jaya
from somebody, whether my voice is coming.
While we're waiting to sort out what's going on there, we should probably move to the next speaker in the program. Are you comfortable to speak now? Please, come on up.
Can we turn this light on again? Just this one? Whoever's controlling the lights. Just this side.
Would you like a chair to sit with?
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Well, I've been supremely blessed to have known Yamuna for these last 20 years. And I first met her in 1991. I was relatively new to Krishna consciousness. And my wife and I were living in Atlanta, and I was attending chiropractic school there. And Yamuna had suffered some surgery, and so she came to visit and stay with us. And we were to help her recover a little bit. And I was so excited because I had heard about this great personality, larger than life. This was the case. And she came, and the essence of that whole visit was how her experiences of Srila Prabhupada were so profound. And she shared story after story after story after story of her experiences with Prabhupada. And for me, as a new person, this was very impactful. I was completely moved, and the essence of the whole thing was, that came through her, was really how much love Srila Prabhupada had for his disciples. How much care and concern that Srila Prabhupada had for his disciples. And this came through loud and clear in every story that she shared. We also had a chance to experience her divine nature in the kitchen. I think there was actually a picture up there in our kitchen. And I remember watching her walk into the kitchen, and she just walked in and said, "I'm going to make a little something." And so we were sitting in the kitchen, we were sitting out in the living room, and I didn't think there were one or two other folks with us. And I kept turning over and looking over in the kitchen, and as Yogeshwar mentioned, she was very light on her feet. And so it appeared to me, I couldn't see the lower half of her body because of the counter, but it appeared to me that she was floating in the kitchen, back and forth. And she would reach up to the cabinet, and she'd grab something, she'd go across here and grab something, and I kept thinking, she's never been in our kitchen before. How does she know where anything is? And how does she know what's there? So a few minutes later, this nut loaf appeared. And I had heard about self-manifesting deity, so I just assumed this was a self-manifesting nut loaf. But it was an extraordinary start to a wonderful friendship that endured to this day. It was to continue a short time later, as when I graduated from chiropractic school. I got good news a couple of months ahead of time. She had called and invited us both up as a celebration for graduating chiropractic school. So we went up, and we were to receive, or I was to receive, another experience and lesson in Vaishnava etiquette. When we arrived, we went into the room she had prepared for us, and I was stunned. The ambiance in the room, the cleanliness, it was so mesmerizing, so beautiful. There was treats on the pillows. I had never experienced anything, and I found out how much care and love that she had put into the preparation of it. I just couldn't get over it. It just totally stunned me. And of course, we had some wonderful experiences of feasting and feasting and feasting and more feasting. She said I was there to rest and restore after my experience in chiropractic school. After we left Atlanta and after I graduated, we went out to Scottsdale, Arizona, opened a practice out there. And it wasn't too long, 1995, where it was time that I decided I needed to go to a deeper level. And I wanted to take initiation. And there was Yamuna and Dina Karni once again. They stepped in, they guided me every step of the way. They took very serious care of me at every moment. They answered all my questions. They very much facilitated my experience and relationship with Bhakti Tirtha Swami in a very deep and profound way. And just another experience of how much they cared for each and every person that they knew. Yamuna became my best friend in Krishna consciousness. She was oceanic, vast and deep. There was no subject that you couldn't cover with her. There was no limit to the depth in which you could go with her. She was an extraordinary friend and has taught me so very, very much. These last couple of days I've just been meditating on the qualities that she possessed and that I would want and would want any of us to have. First and foremost, I found her to be the personification of personalism. She was so present with each person that was in front of her. She was able to draw out their strengths and talents and abilities. She was able to identify people's skills, and she would just go right to that and acknowledge those. And you felt so loved and so cared for and so acknowledged. This was a tremendous healing for me, and I saw it as a tremendous healing for everybody that she came in front of. The other skills that I saw her possess and share with others, she was very, very encouraging. And she would always inspire the best in each person. If you just showed a little bit of interest in anything, she would just fan that spark and encourage you to no end. She was also very enthusiastic. As you heard from Nirmala, the day before she left, she called Nirmala and she wanted to share with her the everything she was going to do when we got there, which was today, by the way. We were scheduled to be there today and spend a week with her this week. But she was very enthusiastic the whole time I've known her, this whole 20 years. The next thing that she, was so wonderful at was her beautiful abilities. How do I put it? To be grateful. She was grateful every time that I knew her. She was just continually grateful for what Prabhupada was giving her. And let me tell you, this last year was challenging. But she saw the beauty in it. She saw Krishna's hand in everything. And she was so grateful all the time. And if you ever did any little thing for her, she'd let you know about it for days. And just acknowledged every little thing that you had to share with her. The last thing that I really want to share is just basically the essence of everything in my relationship with her. And it's expressed on a little clip and a little film that's coming out next year called the Vaishnavis, I forget, the Women of Bhakti. And I saw the little trailer on this. And basically there was a statement that she said where she said, if you're living bhakti, you give bhakti. And my experience with her, she just lived it continuously, and all the time she lived it, breathed it, ate it, and gave it to us all. I just want to thank Yamuna so very, very much for all the care, the love, the guidance, and direction she poured into my simple little life. I want to thank Dina Tarni so very, very much eternally for all the love, care, and devotion that she poured into my life. And I want to thank Srila Prabhupada for building this boat which we can all jump on board. Hare Krishna.
From what I understand, Yogeshwar will finish out his speech.
Hello?
Yes. Just for a couple minutes, but with no picture.
You're with us. You're with us.
I'm honored to be with you. Shall I say something, or shall I wait?
No, please go ahead.
All right. Because we don't know how long this connection is going to last, and I know you have a schedule there, I just wanted to tell one story about Yamuna, and that's about her cookbook. And it's a much longer story, so I'll keep it brief. I had lost contact with her for many years, and around 1984, I got a letter from London where she was saying, would I please help her publish a cookbook? And I was in the printing and publishing world at the time, and I said, of course, I'll do anything to help you. You're the reason I'm in Krishna consciousness, and if there's any way that I can serve you, I'll be delighted. A few days later, a truck pulled up outside the apartment and unloaded this huge box.
She's been talking.
Yeah. It's a huge box is where you left that.
Can you hear me now?
Must be Verizon.
Yes, this is the ingenuity of the Alachua devotees. There's no hurdle too large that you cannot overcome. You honor Mother Yamuna. So here comes this big box off the truck, and I'm looking at this thing and saying, what have I gotten myself into here? But then I started reading it, and it was extraordinary. It was like scripture. Every page was filled with these extraordinary stories of Prabhupada and Yamuna's travels through India, and the most exquisite descriptions, language, adjectives to describe what a particular dish, a particular prasada preparation was for, and the subtleties of it. And I said, I've got to do something with this. This is too important. So I quit my job, and my dear friend Pilata Priya joined me, and we helped together. We raised a little bit of money and circulated it around, and months went by, and everyone said, no, thank you. I have the most exquisite collection of no thank you letters from publishers across America and the UK that you've ever seen. Nobody wanted it. It was too big. Who would want 1,500 pages of Indian vegetarian food? No one could see it. So, we said, this is important. And the message was, you've got to reduce it. Can you abridge this book? And we talked with Yamuna, and her point was, no, we're not going to compromise. We're going to do something for Prabhupada. We're going to do it right. And that vision sustained us. That kept us going. There were times when we thought, are we absolutely mad? Are we out of our minds? There was more than 100,000 weight measures and temperatures in a book that ended up having more than 860 recipes. And there was a time when we really did think we were out of our minds. And Yamuna would say, no, if you're going to do something for Prabhupada, do it right. Don't hold back. Let's do this. So with her enthusiasm and her devotion motivating us, we finally went to EP, one of the larger publishing companies, and said, look, we will print the book. We will find the money to print it. We'll cover the cost. You just distribute it. And if there are any books left over, we will buy them back. Basically, it was an offer they couldn't refuse. In 1986, Lord Krishna's Cuisine was published, and it started to get some very good reviews. And then we heard that Yamuna's book had been nominated for the Seagrams Award, which is kind of the Pulitzer Prize of cookbook. And what was extraordinary was that particular year, there were books by the biggest chefs in the world, Jacques Pepin, Julia Child, Dear Franny. They all had cookbooks out that year, so we never really thought that much would come of it. We were just all feeling quite honored and blessed that Yamuna's book had at least been nominated as a book of distinction. We went to the meeting where the prize winners were going to be announced, and this is the short form. We were sitting around the table with the publisher and the editor from Dutton, and after a number of other books had been acknowledged, they were going to announce the one cookbook of the year, not just in the category of Asian foods or Mexican foods, but the one cookbook overall that was deemed by experts in the field to be the most important cookbook published anywhere in America. The judge got up at the microphone and she said, well, we have a bit of a surprise this year. The winner of the best cookbook of the year is Lord Krish. And that's all that she had. So we just heard Krish, and we fell off our chairs screaming, rolling on the ground. It was as though we had been struck by a lightning bolt of Krishna Prema. We don't know what had happened to it. It was just the most incredible thing that ever happened. Yamuna very, very graciously got up to the podium and thanked everyone, and we were all very flustered. We didn't know what to think. something quite extraordinary happened. And that was Yamuna. I think if we were to try to answer the question, who is Yamuna? I think Yamuna is the eternal presence of Srila Prabhupada in the world forever and ever. She's the one that we're going to remember whenever the shadows grow dark or whenever circumstances are so harsh that we just want to go away somewhere. She's the energy of love that will sustain us. And I knew back when I first met her that Krishna consciousness had to be real because I saw her love for Prabhupada, and it's impossible for anybody to love an illusion like Yamuna loved Srila Prabhupada. So thank you so much for having invited me to be a part of this celebration of life with one of the great devotees. This story is not over. Yamuna's story is just beginning. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Yogeshwar. Just a few minor little adjustments here. Mukya, sorry to put this on you, but you were going to maybe say a few words in relation to the cookbook, and it's an appropriate time. You want me to say just a couple words, maybe?
You want to give her the mic?
I thought you were going to say no. Be okay. Come up here.
Please come up here, Mukya.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Sorry to follow Yogeshwar, especially about the same subject matter. But it was a similar thing. When I joined the Detroit Temple in 1974, Yamuna Devi was a legend in ISKCON. And she was famous for many, many things that you all know about now that you've been reading. And, you know, her singing and her kirtan and her mood and the things Srila Prabhupada said about her. We would hear things Prabhupada said about her and her cooking. And over the years, the fact that she was considered the best cook in ISKCON was so intriguing to me because I loved cooking for Krishna, and I used to think, I wish I could learn to cook from Yamuna. I just wish I could meet her someday or maybe get to learn something from her. And then we heard she was writing a cookbook, and we kept hearing it, and there was no cookbook, but we heard she was writing this cookbook. And then one day, someone, I don't remember who it was, said to me, I have 1,000 pages of her recipes from her writing this cookbook. And they were typed on a typewriter. There was literally at least 1,000 pieces of paper of her recipes. And he said, if you want to copy this, you can have these recipes too. So I took, it was at least this big, and I took it to a copy shop and I copied every recipe, and then everywhere I went I took this huge folder with me and I was cooking her recipes. And I went to France for 3 years from 80 to 83, and I took this big thing with me there, and I was cooking from it because I did a lot of cooking when I was over there. And finally, then later I came back to Detroit. Finally the book came out, and I said, I'm going to read every page of this book. And I read it like a novel. I started with the very first page, and I read every single word, put a little marker in it, each day, and kept reading till I finished the whole book. And I was floored at what an amazing writer she was. It was the same. I was so happy to hear Yogeshwar talk about this because every anecdote was some nectar about Krishna consciousness, about her experience, about Prabhupada. It wasn't just a cookbook where every single recipe comes out perfect. Every recipe. I've never had that happen in a cookbook either. But I realized by the time I finished this book, I've learned to cook from Yamuna. And it was such an ecstatic feeling. And I never met her until last year for the first time. She was staying with Yamuna Devarshi, healing from coming back from her hospital stay, and she said she wanted to speak to me just to encourage me in my service. She wanted to speak to me, and so I spoke to her for a couple of hours, and really I was like a fan looking at a rock star. I couldn't hardly talk. I was so tongue-tied, and she's actually like completely fluent talker. She can really talk. And so she did all the talking and I did all the absorbing and kind of feeling, foolish, but still happy to be in her presence and actually have gotten to meet her. So I felt like I kind of came full circle, having imbibed so much from that book. And I actually wound up buying that book by the case And I would give it out to people throughout the years. I went through many cases of that book. You know.
She came to New York. I am not. And she came to New York to cook for the, I don't know if anybody remember this, but she was cooking for some, maybe the publisher, maybe, well, some very important people. So she stayed in the New York temple. There was a lot of devotees there. Mother Marjorie was there. She helped her a lot. Remember, Chuta was there. And I was staying in the temple. Mother Yamuna had so much boga that it couldn't fit in the cooler inside the temple, so they took a Chuta room. It was cold. They opened the windows and put all the boga in that room. And that's where all the boga was. And I remember helping in the kitchen. And one thing that really struck me was that while she was cooking, she was also cleaning. And I asked her, I said, I can do the dishes, you know, you can cook and I can do the dishes. And Sister Prabhupada said that a Brahmin leaves the kitchen cleaner than when she comes in or he comes in. And I remember that stick with me. I still don't clean my kitchen very much, but I always remember that. I had a really nice time. It was the first time I ever met her. I already had her cookbook and I helped her in that kitchen. I couldn't remember what she cooked, but I remember that the dinner was a huge success. We transported all the prasadam into Manhattan. She fed everybody. It was just an amazing experience.
I'd like to know, just a small raise of hands, how many people here have just have had association with Yamuna Prabhu or have a strong feeling or strong impression or feelings of affection for Yamuna Prabhu? And there's no way that we would, of course, so many devotees, everyone who met her, I'm sure. There's no way that we would be able to hear from everyone this evening, and we would very much like to. So Yamuna was all about round robin. When you would get together with her, she wanted everyone to be involved and have everyone included. So just for a couple minutes, just so that some people can get a chance to share that might not get to share by coming up here and speaking, I'd like to just pass around the mic and everyone just give 1, 2, or 3 words what they think of Yamuna. You know, she's the most wonderful devotee. She's my hero. She's, you know, she sings beautifully. I thank her for Govinda prayers. Just whatever it is that you feel, just very quickly, let's just spend a few minutes for all the devotees to do that, okay? If you could just kind of go like this if you're interested to share, so that, because we only have a little bit in the way of mics. Otherwise, I might just come up to you and give you a mic. All right.
You could do Art Linkletter and just hold it up.
Okay, Manati.
Very, very loving.
Very, very loving.
I met her in '86 in Prabhupada Palace of Gold, and then in '96 in Gitanagari. And both times she was very, very loving and open-hearted and willing to hear and receive lessons in so many ways.
Just one word.
Well, whenever I cook, I always, use her recipes, and it always comes out very good.
Sorry.
She's very excellent.
I feel really lucky. She's to come to the Los Angeles Great now and teach us cooking classes. And whenever we had that opportunity, it was like you became ecstatic eating what she cooked. It was like you were in another world. And also she was in Three Rivers, I think, when the school moved up to Three Rivers. So we would go and have darshan of her DVDs, and we were very lucky to have her association while I was doing it.
If you had any time with Yamuna, it's hard to put it in a couple of words.
In the late 80s,
that she was just emphasizing this thing, and we were a group of young devotees. So it was really a wonderful experience. And she had really very tiny, bony eye, very small as well, and just everything was like transporting us to another realm every time we came. It was amazing.
You're so fortunate. Quite a bit of association.
One time we were at her house in Sharanagati, and a devotee said that he had to leave early because he had to cook food for some devotees the next day. And she said, she corrected him and said, you get to cook for the devotees tomorrow. And that always sticks with me.
I was just telling my wife this evening as we were coming that when I was growing up, I guess when I started cooking, when I was 10 or 11 or something, Yamuna's cookbook was the cookbook. You know? So I was just remembering that was the first cookbook that I would use as a kid starting to cook. That was really nice.
I never met Mother Yamuna. I never saw her personally, but my husband bought me her cookbook, and by her glory and grace, everything that I've ever cooked out of that cookbook is fantastic. And my most favorite recipe I'd like to share is Prabhupada's Vyas Push soup. Now, I'm not sure which page it's on. I really wanted to bring the cookbook tonight and share it and read that, but to get here on time, I just had to, anyway. But if you get a chance, try that soup. It's Prabhupada's Vyaspuja soup, and it is so incredible. And that's what I loved about the cookbook, because she tells you everything that Prabhupada specifically favored, that he loved. And if you cook it, it's like, wow, this is for Prabhupada.
The last time I saw Mother Yamuna, she gave me a kiss on the cheek.
When I just came to Nikhalavan, I find out that my sister-in-law, Sachi Devi, was a very good cook, and my family was concerned because I was just, becoming a vegetarian, so they gave me 6 months to go back to my country because I was not going to handle it. By the mercy of Mother Yamuna and Lord Vatasachi, that's how I get well fed, and how I also remain in Krishna consciousness. Vatasachi told me, you want to learn how to cook? This is the book. Thank you. Inspirational.
Something that strikes me is that Prabhupada had many people that were close to him and imbibed something from him, learned something from him, but Yamuna has his mood, his internal mood of ecstatic Krishna consciousness, which is the most precious thing that the Guru imparts, and that can only be imparted from heart to heart. It cannot be memorized, it cannot be learned in a book. And that is she's so fortunate. And we're so fortunate to have her.
The only time I got to see Yamuna was in the 80s. She gave it was a women's meeting in Prabhupada's room at the manor. And before she began, it was her kirtan. That was mostly her devotional kirtan.
I've heard the word fortunate, and I am definitely knowing I'm fortunate awe and reverence. I'm in the room with Mother Yamuna. And yet, at some point, we were introduced, and the way she greeted me was not awe and reverence. It was a dearest, dearest friend who loved me, and we didn't meet often, but when we did, tears would fill both of our eyes. We'd look at each other, tears would fill, and we would just embrace. Such a caring, loving person. But she's really a role model, I hope, in the life too.
You do Chaitanya Dasi. Oh, good.
I met Yamuna here in this temple room, and we were having bhajans, and I decided to sing Jai Radha Madhava, and I sang the Prabhupada melody, and immediately she was transported. You could see her whole being transported to Prabhupada's presence, and she said, "Oh, Prabhupada," and she, she was exuding that bhav of being with Srila Prabhupada, and that was very impressive to me.
Nirmala? Didn't Prabhupada say something about Yamuna and Bob? What did he say?
I don't remember exactly,
Anyway,
so I don't want to...
Okay, so more or less essentially he just mentioned that. Yes, Arna?
That Prabhupada told him about Krishna Maharaj and the 70s. He said that he had done that with
And they also said it in the 60s.
Yeah, in the 60s too.
I got to help with installation of her deities out about Nihari for a few days. And first thing I learned from her is when I got off the bus and saw her, I paid my obeisances and popped up and looked down. She was still paying her obeisances for about 3 minutes after I left. And then she began to chastise me because I put my bead bag on a chair. She says you should never put your bead bag anywhere where you sat, like on a bed or a chair. So remember that. And she had just finished the cookbook, and so she was really ecstatic about that, and she gave me also that 1,000-page thing, and she said that chocolate sandesh was a deity necessity. A deity necessity. She also was my woodworking guru. She had made this little teeny asana, and I said, "How'd you make that?" And she came out with her tools chest, and she had a little jigsaw and a hammer and thing, and she goes, I go, "Wow, I can do it." So I went home and made my first asana. And you know how you stay up real late on marathons sometimes, and you get so that you just laugh? Well, we were staying up really late getting ready for the installation, and we were rolling on the floor. I mean, we just couldn't, I don't know what we were laughing about. We laughed on everything, we were really zonked out. Anyway, it was a very nice experience, and there's something that makes go to other people.
Krishna. I met Mother Yamuna for the first time a few years ago. Here in the temple, we asked her to lead the Guru Puja. And she led the Guru Puja, and then she started dancing ecstatically. And she was a little big, so she was moving from one side of the room to the other, and she had everybody dancing with her. So she's a great dancer also.
She has that purity and devotion that even if you don't know, because sometimes we see other devotees, we don't have the obeisance, it's really okay. But to see in her is just, you want to just pay obeisances to, whether you see her personally or see her picture, that was her purity, devotion was there in her.
For the last 35, 40 years or so, she's been singing for every ISKCON deity every morning, all over the world, practically every hour. So other than Srila Prabhupada, she's the only one voice singing for Krishna.
So our voice is always circling around the globe. Chaitanya Jagata.
It was 1970 in Los Angeles, and the little 45 record came out with Yamuna Devi singing Hare Krishna. And when I heard her singing, she was the inspiration for me that there was hope for women in ISKCON to be able to lead kirtan, and just the sound of her voice went deep into my heart. And later when Chutananda and the devotees in Delhi, the Delhi Kirtan, when Prabhupada asked her to sing that kirtan, that cassette tape with her singing, the melody that she sang, I played that tape until it finally wore out. And I've been wondering, how can I ever get that on a CD or put it on my MP3 player so that I can continue to hear her singing that kirtan, particularly because Prabhupada, he basically sort of forced her to sing at the Delhi Pandal. And just hearing the purity and the love in her voice and singing the holy name and doing that to please Srila Prabhupada has always stuck with me. And also a few years ago at Ananda Manjari's house, when she had a program for the ladies in the community, I hadn't seen Yamuna since 1971 in Vrindavan, when I was able to meet her there. And Ganga Mai was also there, Ganga Mai, who's also left her body. And the two of them were there in the room together. And I said, Yamuna Mai, Ganga Mai ki jai. And Ganga and I hugged, and then Yamuna, I went up to her, and I have a picture that somebody took, and I posted it this week on Facebook. She gave me the hug that was the most deep, loving, selfless, unconditional hug of love that I think I've ever had. So I deeply want to thank her from my heart for being such an inspiration. Yamuna Mai ki jai.
Okay, so I think maybe one or two more people, and then we're going to. So, Ms. Palucci and Narthaka.
Has some notes.
Who's that? He's got us a lot.
You understand that over the last year that she's working with patients, and even through all her serious medical illnesses and anything that was going on, anytime she came into our office, everybody knew that there was somebody different. She was always very grateful, very happy, just jolly through everything. One funny story is that I had a patient come who I was counseling on diet, and was telling me you need to maybe follow a vegetarian diet. He's like, well, I have this Indian cookbook at home, maybe I should use that. So, which one do you have? What is it? And then he thought about it for a minute, and he asked his wife, and he said, oh, it's by this lady, Yamuna. I was like, yeah, you follow that one, you'll be okay.
I always remember she was talking to a few of us once, and she related to us how she was with a lot of devotees in a darshan Srila Prabhupada was giving. And Prabhupada looked at everybody and he said, let us see who has on the best tilak.
Is she going to speak?
Anyone else?
My husband remembers that before Yamuna Devi and Malati and others went to London that she was cooking for Radhastami, and not only did she cook a wonderful feast, but all the way back then she cleaned the kitchen to perfection afterwards, and it was just really wonderful. And for myself, I wanted to say that by studying her book, that I sat down with it for several days. I just got into reading Yamuna's book for 3 days. And it is a readable book, and it is a method of being able to very personally cook. It has so much in it to be able to get the mood of cooking personal ritual pie. I really appreciate that.
Hare Krishna. So because our Skype connection Skyped out, skipped a beat, we were going to have Janaki come on, but that wasn't going to happen. So she sent me an email. She's been trying to listen on the little phone. It's a little hard to hear everything. And she sent me an email from herself and from her dear roommate, Barb. And both of these ladies, Janaki is her sister, and Barb is a deep, good friend. They just had immense, undying love for Yamuna that is, of course, experiencing breaking hearts right now. But I'll read what she just sent, because she can't speak to you right. My dear friends, please hold on to my gratitude and love for all that you are and all that you do and continue to do honoring Yamuna. I must tell you, it has been and continues to be very difficult not to physically hold Yamuna's beautiful hand and to look one more time at her exquisite glow. I do know, really, Barb and I do know that her wondrous life on this planet was temporary, but having that said, her soul, her spirit was so focused, so clear, was so incredibly in love with Krishna, Radharani, Prabhupada. Dina, Barb, and scores, multiples of devotees from 90 to 90. In some ways, she was a multiple personality. For Yamuna was a very private person in the human aspect of this bodily condition, but in the journey of spirituality was both a blazing white light, a beacon whose only importance was to fill and fill and fill her being with her spiritual master's teaching, and his spiritual master's teaching, so that the disciplic teaching and learning were so beautifully pure. Then she put, so sorry, this keyboard likes to skip letters. From the moment she entered Srila Prabhupada's apartment on 26th 2nd Avenue, introductions were made. Prabhupada said, "Oh, so nice. Your sister has come to help for your wedding, to help with the feast. Can she cook?" "Yes, so she will assist me." The feast was extraordinary. Mukund recalls almost all the preparations, but the biggest, most important creation was, of course, our wedding. But equally as important was Yamuna's instant attraction to Prabhupada. For a woman who was quite... Sindra's trying to call in too. For a woman who was quite disciplined in her actions and emotions to fall into his heavenly arms so rapidly must have been preordained. Do you have his number?
I don't. It'll be on your phone when it.
I know it, but I'm on my phone. I can't.
But after.
Anyway, for my personal consolation is that in the months while in Florida, I was able to call her weekly or more. She was so energized, so encouraged as to the seemingly wellness of her body. She, for the first time in decades, called me a childhood name. Shall I say it?
Yeah.
Boswell Iggy Magoo Snarsh. Sometimes Janaki, sometimes her sister, and sometimes Jan. What was also glorious was her sense of humor. We could go into fits of laughter so that tears were running down our legs. I believe her laughter has moved into an eternal state of celestial joy. No doubt she still travels with her knives, spices, and pots. Janaki. Janaki Maiki. And this is from her companion Barb. I'd like to share a dream I had. There are some dreams that I leave her more than just imagination, and this was one of them. I'm in a crowd of people all sitting on the ground gathered around Prabhupada listening to his teachings. He then stands and says, "There is one here that is my true disciple, and my heart leaps with joy." Everyone in the crowd hushed and looked around. Who could that be? Prabhupada pointed at Yamuna and said, "My daughter, it is you." I also want to share what a joy it was to be around her. The times that Yamuna and Dina would come and spend with us in our house were so blessed, and I'll keep those memories forever. She could sing praises to the Lord constantly while she was cooking, while she swept the floor, while she was just standing for a quiet time. Music has always brought me closer to God, and it made my heart so glad to know her. Barb. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Much to share.
Hare Krishna. I actually did not know Yamuna, but I always knew of Yamuna. As Mother Mukhi said, she was a legend. And she really was a legend throughout ISKCON. By the time I joined in 1972, everyone knew of her. I think it was soon after that that the Govinda were regularly played in the temple. Of course, it's so long ago that I can't remember, but I had some small part to do with the cookbook. There was a point when I was had the BBT order department, and at one point we helped with some of the editing or putting it together, but I can't remember exactly what it was, but I had some connection with it at that point. Mainly what I wanted to connect with as a... This one? Hare Krishna? There we go. I'm on the GBC Executive Committee this year, and of course, as soon as Yamuna departed, we needed to put together a letter of condolences, a letter of expressing. We wanted.
Slightly while you're talking.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Oh, sorry.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Baba
So this one works. When we wanted to put a statement out, it was a little bit daunting because we felt a little bit inadequate, and so we brought in a lot of help, and so our GBC statement was sort of a combined effort. Malati, weren't you part of it? I think you helped, didn't you, also with the statement to a large degree? So it was really a combined effort of many devotees. But one thing that I noticed in the days after Yamuna's departure was while tonight we're hearing many personal recollections and remembrances of how Yamuna personally affected so many people, but her effect was beyond even just those personal interactions. She had a tremendous effect throughout her entire movement. And there was a great deal of mourning, a great deal of appreciation for her life expressed, particularly on the GBC discussion conference in those few days. There were just so many statements from sannyasis, GBC members, people throughout the world who expressed the impact that Yamuna had on their life and the impact that she had on Krishna consciousness. I think that she was particularly appreciated, in two ways, really. One, as far as her incredible pioneering work in helping Srila Prabhupada spread Krishna consciousness everywhere from the West Coast to London to India, but also, of course, because of her personal qualities. And those personal qualities and devotion are what we are hearing from so many of the devotees tonight who personally experienced those. And I think that's the real essence of what Yamuna Devi brought for all of us. So I'm first just going to read the letter from the GBC, and then I'm going to also read a few things from a Vyas Puja offering that she had written. With great sadness, the governing body commission of ISKCON deeply mourned the departure of her grace, Yamuna Devi. She dedicated the last 45 years of her life to the worship of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. She was a mentor, guide, and a friend to many, and a beloved member and a hero of ISKCON. At every ISKCON temple, her singing of Govindam greets the Lord. Yamuna Devi was one of the most influential devotees during ISKCON's fledgling years. She was among a handful of people who established ISKCON's first temples. Those who came to ISKCON in later years joined and established society, but Yamuna Devi was one of the few who had established that society. Yamuna Devi explained something of her relationship with Prabhupada while addressing the GBC in 2000. In both men and women, Srila Prabhupada observed our propensities and expertly dovetailed them in his preaching mission. For many years in different countries and circumstances, I had the good fortune to render personal service to him. He trained me, urged me to accept more and more responsibility, and regularly asked me to lead kirtans, give classes, arrange programs, manage departments, provide comforts for visiting devotees, meet with leaders, and actively promulgate Krishna consciousness. In ISKCON, India, where previously no women were allowed, he sent me to various temples to learn cooking and deity worship, and repeatedly asked me to train others in the same. Yamuna Devi was well known for her own caring and compassionate nature. Though famous in ISKCON and beyond, she was kind and unpretentious. She was always singing or chanting Hare Krishna and had focused attention on whatever service she was doing. Her cleanliness standards were immaculate, and she dedicated herself to following Prabhupada's instructions in her actions, words, character, and heart. Whoever met her experienced, through her, both Prabhupada's uncompromising standards and his love. She published her own cookbook entitled Lord Krishna's Cuisine, The Art of Indian Vegetarian Cooking, which garnered multiple awards, including the International Association of Culinary Professionals Cookbook of the Year, which we heard about from Yogeshwar Prabhu. She spent her time in recent years mostly in Sharanagati, a farm community in Western Canada, teaching devotees by precept and example. Yamuna Devi's mood can be appreciated in a personal offering to Srila Prabhupada in 2002. Dear Srila Prabhupada, I remember how kirtan was so intense and joyous in your presence, how time and place dissolved in those kirtans, how your thumbs lifted off the surface of your kartels as they sizzled in sound, and how your vocal cords and mouth vibrated and expanded as you filled the space with hauntingly beautiful transcendental sound vibrations. I remember losing myself in that sound and wishing never to leave this space or your presence. In this connection, I pray, even if only one more time, to hold the microphone for you as you chant your favorite Vaishnava prayer, Hari Hari Vikale, as experienced that final time in Akashganga in Mumbai. I pray that one day in the future I may see you face to face again. This vision may be many lifetimes in front of me, but I do not see any goal worth achieving. However slow or difficult or impossible this task may seem from my fallen position. There is nothing else more appealing. Please bless me with this perseverance to continue on the path to meet you. Your eternal servant, Yamuna Devi. We lament the departure of our dear God sister and Srila Prabhupada's dear daughter, Yamuna Devi, from our material vision and rejoice in her reunion with him as she desired. Yamuna Devi ki jai. This 2002 offering was really quite amazing, and Sudharma.
Behind you.
I'm actually very happy that you sent that to me. It's about 9 pages, so we can't read it all. But I pulled out a couple, 3 paragraphs that sort of continue in that mood, and it's really very wonderful because it so much expresses her love and her relationship with Srila Prabhupada. And as we know, for one to be an exalted devotee means relationship with Guru. And that is the source of our strength, the source of our advancement. And we can see that Yamuna really imbibed the spirit of Srila Prabhupada, and she learned from him. And she continued those instructions and pass on that mood and instructions that Srila Prabhupada to others, as we're hearing tonight. And so, actually, this one is well worth going back and looking. It's a 2002 Vyasa Puja offering. I'll just read about 3 more paragraphs of it, because it's very, very beautiful. I remember in 1967, in the beginning, how you instructed how to do almost everything. To chant, play instruments, cook, scrub pots, wash clothes, clean floors, wrap robes, make a recording, manufacture cartels, decorate, write letters, keep accounts, pronounce Sanskrit, chant, be committed, be responsible, and so on. Even how to be diplomatic with our annoying hooligan next-door neighbors, the Hells Angels Biker Club. You remember this one, too? What's an example? What's that? Harley Krishna, okay. We'll let Malaki tell us about the Hells Angels. In this connection, I pray to become expert in these many areas and more, but mostly to become expert in devotional service. I remember also in San Francisco the tears you shed the night your first initiated disciple informed you that he wanted to leave your company and the practice of Krishna consciousness. How with his head in your lap and your hand stroking his head, you implored him to stay in your company and practice Krishna consciousness and experience a wonderful life. How you explained that you might die at any moment, and that all of us present had a serious responsibility to take up this process of Krishna consciousness and try to become perfect. We collectively felt a sense of urgency that was compelling and profound. In this connection, I pray that the sense of urgency experienced then will never leave me. I remember how in San Francisco we were informed by the New York devotees of your life-threatening heart attack at the end of 1967, and how at your request we stayed in the temple for almost 12 hours straight, praying to our Jagannath deities for your protection. How we all felt that Lord Jagannath heard our crying plea, and you stay with us for at least some more time. And indeed, you recovered. In this connection, I pray for your continued company and pure devotional service. I remember illustrating how a devotee gives and receives gifts. First, how you had the ability to extend yourself to so many at once. You had the gift of giving fully to those in your company. I recall once when my father, long lost since my early childhood, showed up to meet you when I was age 25. The meeting was brief, but incredibly, he presented you with 2 Benares silk saris. You gave him prashad, and in turn, you gave the saris to my sister and I. Over the years, you gave me so many gifts from your wardrobe: sweaters, chatters, slippers, jewelry, socks. They have long ago been distributed to others. In this connection, I pray to share all the gifts I have received from you and further reduce eating and sleeping. Last one. I remember how, as the years passed, your health dwindled. How on many occasions you candidly mentioned to me, this body is finished. How you were so detached from this discomfort, and to your last breath, as you lay emaciated in your disappearance bed in Vrindavan, allowed us your association and gave us Krishna. In this connection, I pray to understand how you did this, to allow this example always to remain in the forefront of my life. So there's much more in this, but I think this gives a wonderful example of the mood and the consciousness of Yamuna Devi Dasi. And I found that hearing Yamuna's sentiments and her expression of her love and understanding of Srila Prabhupada made me feel very close to her and feel like I have an understanding and a connection that I didn't have before. So I'm very grateful for that. Hare Krishna.
Would you like to share a few words? Chutananda, is it a rush for you? Because, yeah, we do have you on the schedule at a little bit later time. Are you in a rush? I thought you wanted to share a few words. After, you can come up after you.
You have to rub the cumin seeds together in your hand and then drop them into the hot oil. Well, the Pishima used to use mustard oil, but we use ghee. There's no difference in the Pishima used to use too much mustard oil. I didn't like it, but we use ghee. Now that we got that out of the way. I did not know her very much. In India, the sannyasis, but I associated with Gurudas more. And Gurudas told me, that Yamuna told him, that she would spend more time with me if I could crack jokes like a children. When I first saw her, I said, this is Mirabai. Now come to serve Prabhupada and Mahaprabhu. Mirabai did not know Mahaprabhu. She rejected George Harrison's offer to be a recording star because Krishna and Prabhupada was her star. Not that it could have been a whole other life, which was hers in the cookbook. Couldn't help it to win that award. Didn't expect it. She became famous in that. And that's as far as I know. Unless you know much more than
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about Yamuna Devi. I started coming around to the Frederick Street Temple as a young boy, 17, in San Francisco, 1968. And I liked the philosophy, I liked chanting, but this was the land of hippies. And I didn't quite know if this was really something I could do for the rest of my life. But one morning, by chance, I was working for somebody who got very drunk. He was a painter, so I had nothing to do that day. He didn't come to work, I couldn't work, so I said, I'll go to the temple. And I got there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I started chanting my first rounds. But then there was a Bhagavatam class, which I didn't know anything about. And Yamuna was giving it. She gave the class. And that convinced me. It convinced me that you could be a devotee and you don't have to be a hippie. You can be both grave and ecstatic. You can be loving and piercing and intelligent all at the same time. I didn't know you could do all that. And Yamuna was all that in the Bhagavatam class. She was very loving, very much like a mother. You see? And that is culture. That is culture. And so it was as if, right from the beginning, that was what was so startling, I believe. And then Bonnie touched on it very strongly. That is if she came to us without training, evolution, the need to go through an ashram and a lot of experience in the temples. She came with Vaishnava culture ready to go. And her connection with Srila Prabhupada was so strong that to associate with her was to associate with Srila Prabhupada. It was direct. When you were with her, you were with Prabhupada. And that was such a delight. So that was the main thing. So in various times when I would meet her subsequently, that's always what would come up. Of course, she went on to England, in London, and on to India, and I met her again in Vrindavan in 74. It was the year before the Krishna Balaram temple was opened. And we were remembering the good old days. When Jayananda was the temple president. And as has been mentioned by so many people here, she was so encouraging and always saw the good in everything. So she was remembering one by one all the devotees in the temple, each and every one, and remembering the. And so we had her memories were all about individuals and their personalities and how they were all Vaishnavas. So that was a very wonderful experience. And just the last point is that when I met her here in Palatra quite a few times, but the point is that in New Vrindavan, she was working on her book, and she was also working in the palace. I happened to be managing the palace at that time. It was Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi. We took it to be Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi, Pushpa Samadhi in North America. And she put her deities right in, if you know the palace layout, there's one room that's a temple room. So she put her deities in there. And so every morning, we could chant, she would chant japa and I could chant japa there in front of her deities. And she would cook in that very nice kitchen they had there. But but in the evenings, there would sometimes be these community meetings. And she and I would sit in the back of the big temple and we had meetings about New Vrindavan. We were both kind of newcomers there. And we didn't last very long, either one of us. But, and she'd show me the cookbook she was working on. And it just looked amazing. And she was working on it continuously and very gravely. And she was very humble about it. This was a book that was about to come out. It was so incredible when it was printed. It blew my mind, blows everybody's mind. And she wasn't proud of it at all. It was a meditation. You could see that it was just a meditation. She, what is it? Love what you do? Do what you love and love what you do. She was just absorbed in it. And of course, anybody knows Yamuna. She's not only present with you, she's very present with what she's doing. Whatever she's doing it. So she was fully absorbed in working on it. And I couldn't even chit-chat with her very much because she would just look up every once in a while and get back involved in it. And I realized that I was disturbing a great soul who was absorbed in something that was, I had no idea how magnificent it would be. When the last time I saw her in Vrindavan, I was sitting in her house, and she said, Prabhupada, when I came to see Srila Prabhupada once and sat in his room, she was wearing white, she said, and she sat down and Srila Prabhupada said, Woman in White. I read that book. There's a book that came out in the 19th century. It was an English novel, famous novel called Woman in White. I read that book. Did you read it? No. And she laughed. Thank you very much.
So we're going to do a little meditative bhajan. Yamuna is going to sing Hari Hari to be played. Kar had a recording of it. As far as we know, it's the only recording of her singing this song, which was very dear to her. Prabhupada told her that it was his favorite song. So we're going to have a slideshow of her deities while we're singing the song, and you're welcome to sing along and try to enter into the mood. It's going to take about 12 to 15 minutes. Very beautiful. And the youth who are prepared to speak, if you could come and situate yourselves up here toward the end of this, so in about 5-7 minutes, if you could all come sit up here, that'll be the next part of the program. At the beginning of this, you don't hear it clearly, but at the beginning she says that she's going to try to sing this song in the exact same way she heard it from Srila Prabhupada.
There are photos of that, and he's completely immersed very, very deeply in this song. Well, anyway, I'll try to onto it, but I didn't just give a proximity to Prabhupada's melody and how he sings.
you by the picture on the table.
And the Prabhu that drove from Miami, the car contract, are you here? Come up. And if somebody's going to read Janavi's offering.
Can you each introduce yourself as well?
Hare Krishna.
Go for it.
My name is Shakti Das. It's funny, I wrote the speech and then I realized every time I was going to say about Mother Moon, it's been said. And it's interesting because I only, like so many devotees shared in the round robin, I only met her 3 times. But every time it was my wife and I meeting her. I've been blessed to develop with Srila Prabhupada's movement. Thanks to Srila Prabhupada. Thanks to my parents. And I've grown up in the association of many devotees, and I've experienced so many qualities of different devotees. I've experienced strength, spiritual strength, spiritual knowledge, very wisdom, skills in doing projects for Srila Prabhupada. But with Mother Yamuna, it was unique. It was what everybody keeps saying, that the deep love. I remember when my wife and I visited Sharanagati, we spent a week there. And we were going to her house every day for the morning program and evening programs, doing kirtan. And she invited all of us, so that was my wife and I, our kids, Kar and Radha, that's who we were staying with, and their whole family that came over. And she sat us down at her dining table, and she cooked khichdi, and she served us. And my wife and I were looking at each other and crying, because, this was an older Prabhupada disciple, practically a guru, a sannyasi. She's serving us. So that was an example of her love that she was passing down. All I can say is the few times that I did associate with her in kirtan in the discussion, how she just opened up the discussion to anybody that was there, whether they were an 8-year-old or 25-year-old or 60-year-old, she would just open up the discussion to the whole audience. And that was the best Bhagavatam classes that I had that way. And so all I can say is in her presence, in her association, I experienced Srila Prabhupada, I experienced our disciplic succession, I experienced a desire, she knew a continued desire to keep chanting, a desire to worship deities, a desire to continue to associate with devotees. And the last time we saw her, she hugged my wife and I both together, and she said, "You have a special place in my heart." And it's funny because we thought, yeah, we do. But then hearing from everybody today, everybody has a special place. She just had a way of making you feel special. As so many have said before, I'm just eternally grateful. And I'd like to mention that just like I'm grateful to her for connecting me to Srila Prabhupada more deeply, I feel eternally grateful to other Vaishnavas, Kar and Radha, for pushing me, pulling me into her association. So it's the association of devotees that brings us closer, deeper circles. So thank you, Kar and Radha. Hare Krishna.
We're going to hear from Janavi through the phone.
Do they know who Janavi is? Can you remind them who she is, please?
Janavi, the violin player.
That plays the violin that you've seen.
Hare Krishna, Nami?
Janavi.
Hare Krishna.
Can you
hear me?
Yes.
Hare Krishna. I just want to first of all thank everybody so much. It's so wonderful to hear Yamuna Devi glorified by some. I wasn't really prepared when Arjuna says to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, how so overwhelmed and so pained in one way that he was being so familiar and he's lost and Job, seems to be his best friend and he realizes that the Supreme Lord and as I hear everyone glorify all of you, I feel just more and more humble that I had to pass through so much time in those issues in her company. I met her when I was a young child, and then I didn't meet her again until I was about 17, 18 years old. I went with my mom to the third Sharanagati, and we just were there to drop off Peter Piney, and we were only due to spend 24 hours there. And I still to this day can't believe how that 24 hours changed my life. We were greeted at the door with just blasted face of rose petals, and we just enveloped us in the most incredible embrace that I've ever experienced. And I instantly felt that I was meeting somebody that I had known for a very long time. And after that 24 hours, we just talked and we spent time with her deities and we chanted together. She cooked for us. I left and I when we were driving away, I just said to my mom, I still had in a spiritual world. I couldn't believe how much the experience had touched me. And so I was just completely driven to try and maintain some connection and communication with her. And I was very taken aback and just incredibly honored that she actually responded to she invited me to her company over and over again. And I always felt very, very, very unworthy. She was an incredible devotee. When I was with her, I felt that I could associate with Srila Prabhupada, not just because she would tell us about Prabhupada in such rich detail and with such heart and emotion, but because she embodied so many of those qualities about Prabhupada that she was made herself. I don't need to list them. I'm sure everybody knows, everyone knows about her incredible qualities, but I was with her 3 weeks ago and I was noticing and then her ability to make everyone feel comfortable to have such a disarming sense of humor that made us call it, but at the same time be so incredibly sober and deep and invite everybody else to step up as well, no matter what age you were, no matter how well she was interested to hear what you had to say. She would continually roast you and she would reassure, I'm not this is a rhetorical question and I know the answer. I really want to know what's your realization. And then when we would share our realization, she would just relish it, would listen so with such an open heart that was really, I've never experienced that with a devotee of her seniority and her caliber. And that always touched me very, very deeply. She did everything with such care, such artistry, I was aware that there were so many of her god sisters and other peers, god brothers and god sisters, that hadn't had any association with her for decades. And I was very privileged to be part of a meeting that she had in London in March last year, where many of her god sisters from Europe just came especially to meet her, and they spent the whole afternoon together just reminiscing and laughing and joking and just relishing each other's company with just, the most incredible enthusiasm. And I was the only person there. And I felt like I was watching a reunion of the go-tos. I don't know how they must seem to laugh when they meet together and talk about their service and talk about how much they love Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. And it was just so inspiring to see that. And I told her that afterwards, that I wish that for my generation, that we can stay connected in that way and relish each other and relish the service that we get to perform. And throughout our lives, stay so deeply connected in that way for instance, by physical location. Just one or two more things. I feel that in her passing, she leaves perhaps even a stronger connection, because I feel that she's been more present in my thoughts and really present with me now. And I find that in every situation now, I think, what would Yamuna Devi do in this situation? Because in everything she did, she was completely exemplary. I have no doubt that if I try and follow in her footsteps, that I can do something valuable for Srila Prabhupada and her devotees. And I feel that this was really the greatest blessing in my life. A gift that I can't possibly repay. I'm really in her debt. And as Shakti was mentioning, I'm really eternally indebted to those devotees who also facilitated my association with her, Kar and Radha and the entire Prabhu and so many others. There's so many to mention. I feel like I could talk about her for hours and hours and hours. So I know that there's so many people more to speak. And just one last thing was that whenever we would leave her company, she would want to say a kavasha, which for her, everyone would hold hands together, and she would nominate somebody, or she would say a prayer of protection or a prayer for inspiration for everybody. And I feel that she's doing that for us now. She's giving us just endless blessings, and I can't express my gratitude more that I've had the chance to be with such devotees. Thank you so much.
Anyway, so Kar asked me to speak. I had only a few experiences with Yamuna Prabhu. He asked me to speak about, I guess, my feelings on how she was with the youth in these last few years. And the first time that I met Yamuna Prabhu was 2003. I was in Sharanagati. I was visiting friends, and it was 35 degrees below zero outside, which I didn't know that it could be that cold. Like, it was dangerously cold, actually. And they convinced me that it would be a good idea to go to Mangalarti at her house. And I didn't really know what was happening, but I went along with it, and wearing every article of clothing that I owned. And I had a mystical experience, something that stuck with me, and on so many levels. And the thing that really sticks to the forefront is I was just an 18-year-old kid, and she didn't really make me feel that way. And the kind of group that went to her, to this program, is the kind of most ragtag band of second generation, of just every experience from, you know, the Sons of Prabhupada disciples, people very involved, people on, you know, on the periphery, you know, old, young, we were all there, and she was just so accepting and really so encouraging, no matter what level you were at. You know, she included everybody, and throughout every single time that I was able to associate with her, it always seemed to be with these, you know, in these kind of groups where, you know, there was like a 15-year-old girl talking about how she's addicted to cigarettes and she doesn't know what to do. But Yamuna Prabhu, it wasn't, there was no judgment, it was just, she was able, even though she was, you know, one of the most senior devotees and probably one of the most advanced devotees of Krishna on the planet at that time, was still so connected to each individual teenager with whatever problem it was or whatever realization. She was just there, 100% connected, and it's super encouraging. And like so many people said, it was, you know, her association with Srila Prabhupada, we were able to kind of see through her service attitude, through her advancement, through her affection. She was, you know, somber and grave, yet affectionate and blissful. And it really, it's a very unique experience to have, being from the generation that we are, interacting in that way with such a senior devotee, really connecting on a spiritual level, but on a very deep emotional level, connecting through the heart. And she was a very good example of the fact that, you know, your affection and your loving dealings with people, that is a sign of the advancement in the Krishna consciousness. It's not a sign of your attachment to the, you know, subtle material world. Actually, to be connected with devotees and to be as loving, that showed her advancement and her dedication to Srila Prabhupada. So, you know, these past few years, at least, you know, from my understanding, it just felt like she really set aside a lot of her energy and a lot of her grace, particularly to the next generation, and encouraging in the future, and trying to really make everybody feel that we were all a part of Srila Prabhupada's family, no matter where we were at that instant in time. We're all part of that family. She would encourage that, and just encourage and give love and association. So, I mean, it's very, you know, I'm not qualified really to speak about her glories, but I just feel that it's so important that that blessing that we had, you know, our generation, to be able to see someone so advanced, allow us to connect to Srila Prabhupada and to Krishna in that way.
Hare Krishna, my name is Nandaseva. 2009, Kalakantharu took 3 bhaktas to Sharanagati to spend a month and a half there. It was sort of a spiritual retreat. Some of us have been in Krishna consciousness for about a month, others have been in Krishna consciousness for a year, so we were all pretty new. And we were all really broke. So what we did was that we would do service for our meals. And our favorite place to do service was at Yamuna Memorial.m4v.mp4, of course. And we would like do the gardening, and we would paint the fence, and we would do all kinds of things that they needed, because for some reason there's not many young guys in Sharanagati. And I remember one time, before we started doing service, Yamuna Prabhu told us that we should get in a circle and say all the prayers from the beginning of the Gita. I don't know what those prayers are called. We sat in a circle and we did all those prayers. And all we were going to do is we were just going to rake. And we were just going to that's serious. We were going to rake, we were going to pick up weeds, and we were going to paint the fence. But the thing is that Yamuna Prabhus, they didn't see it as service. They didn't see that as minimal service. And they didn't see it as service for themselves. They saw it as service for Radhabana Bihari. So that was really incredible. I was thinking, well, I'm just going to rake. I mean, it was actually a really powerful experience. And actually it was kind of mystical. And it's one of those, just sitting in a circle and chanting was really powerful. I already mentioned one time where a devotee got up and said, I have to leave early because I have to cook for the devotees, and she automatically said, you get to cook for the devotees, you don't have to cook for the devotees. And that was really powerful because a lot of my service has been cooking. Also, this is similar to all your experiences, was that one of the first days we got there, she served us prashadam. And I was thinking, because I had already gotten this book for my mom as a birthday gift. I had asked her for it because Tulsi Prabhu had lent me her copy. And I said, I need to have a copy of this book. And I told my mom, and she got it for me for my birthday. And I was sitting in her house, and Yamuna Prabhu was serving me prashadam. What is going on? I was blown away. And it was really interesting. One time, I was holding with my left. It was the three bhaktas. We were holding with the plate with our left hands, and I asked her, why don't devotees hold it with their left hands? I mean, it's so much more comfortable than bending over. She said to me, because your left hand is dirty. And we were all like, so there's 2 times where I've kept a journal in my life, and one of those times was when I was in Sharanagati. And I just wanted to share something I wrote. This was 2009. I wrote down exactly what she made for us because I was obsessed with Yamuna Prabhu. She didn't know this though. She made cold rice and yogurt with blanched vegetables, asparagus, broccoli, carrots, and some raw veggies. I can't even read some of this. But anyway, I wanted to read this. I actually learned so Yamuna Prabhu was like a walking, she was like a walking copy of her book. And she said, I wrote here, I actually learned some nice things talking with Yamuna. I didn't know she didn't like being called Mother Yamuna. With your Mother Yamuna during lunch. For example, she explained the difference between shredding and grating. Do you know the difference between grating and shredding? She asked. No, I responded. Well, you have to know the difference between shredding and grating. Anyway, she was just a really wonderful person, and like everyone. I didn't know the difference. I'm sorry. Well, she said it was. I'll explain it here, but it goes. I went into detail about everything because I was obsessed with her. Okay, I should go. Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that Yamuna Prabhu was a really incredible person for new devotees. Also, she really took her time with us, and she tried to show us how merciful Srila Prabhupada is. Thank you so much, Prabhu. I'm sorry if I spoke too much.
No. I just want to apologize to everyone here. It's quite late already. It's 20 of 9. And we still have some really important parts of the program to go. So this is just a gentle reminder to everybody. I'm sorry it's right before you. We need to really start keeping it down to a couple minutes apiece. Okay?
Hey Krishna, my name is Namamrita. I'm Yogeshwar's son, we heard earlier, and my mother is Jyotirmani. I wanted to share the experience that my wife and I had when we met Mother Yamuna a few months back when she was staying at Mother Angavati's house here in Alachua. The last memory I had of meeting Mother Yamuna was actually around the time when the book was coming out. I remember being at my father's apartment in New York. I was probably 7 years old, and what struck me with my memory is just the mood that they had, the three of them, my father Yogeshwar, Prahlad Priya, and Yamuna. I remember when she came into the apartment saying, "Hey Yogi!" And, it just, it felt like they were just like college friends, and it was a really nice atmosphere. So I never saw her again until a few months back, and it really had a huge effect on me. just the potency that a pure devotee of Krishna can have on us. When we arrived there, my wife and I were both just struck by, the love that she gave us, that she had for everybody, for our little daughter Radhika, who's disabled, and how transcendental she was. We had the same experience with her cooking us, a little snack, and also what's happening here. And she made me lead the Sargara prayer before we ate, and I'd never experienced the Sargara prayer in such a way. She had all of us hold hands, and we really chanted it in a very meditative fashion, and felt like we were a tight family through that experience. She was, so nice to our little daughter, Radhika. She would call her Krishna's girl the whole time that we were there, and she would hold her and she would sing to her Hare Krishna. And we spent about an hour with her. The reason we got to go see her is because my mother, Jyotirmani, was visiting from France, and so we all went along. I wanted not to miss the opportunity. And for that, about half the time that I was there with her, I was in tears because she, no philosophy was spoken, but it was the same effect as, receiving the thunder of the amazing philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but through her love and just the way she is, because she doesn't practice Krishna consciousness, she lives it like a lot of people have said. And I just wanted to share my experience when I first found out. My wife told me the morning that she left us, and after the initial shock, like Mother Malati said, this isn't a memorial, it's a celebration. And for me, especially that I didn't have, as much of a relationship as, senior Prabhupada disciple had, for me it really was a celebration, and she opened a door for me it connected, at that moment when I was thinking about it, it connected me to the vastness of the whole creation, and I was thinking, where must she be? So many galaxies and beyond all our material planetary systems. She's now back with Srila Prabhupada and Krishna without a doubt. And it just allowed me a little glimpse into how amazing this adventure we're all on. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. So Yamuna was such a big and important part of so many people's lives. Just really quickly, a short story about Yamuna's life. She was living up in Grants Pass, Oregon, and many of the devotees were just expressing to she and Dina that they needed to be in the Association of Devotees, or otherwise they would lose Prabhupada's mercy. So obviously they were in a lot of anxiety about losing Prabhupada's mercy. And so they wrote, there were different letters, you can read them. Prabhupada was asking them to come, I believe, back to Los Angeles. I hope I'm saying that right, or to come down. And so when they came down to see Srila Prabhupada, they sat in the room, there was a discussion. I don't know all the details of the discussion, but at the end of it, Srila Prabhupada said, 2 or 200. If you're 2 and you're getting along nicely in Krishna consciousness, then you can make all advancement. If you're 200 and you're not getting along, then you cannot make any advancement. And so this really, to me, became something very central in Yamuna's character and the way that she lived her life. She lived in many situations, sometimes closer to the Association of Devotees, sometimes not as close. But in every environment that she was in, she created that Krishna conscious environment. She brought other people into that Krishna conscious environment. Everybody became uplifted through that environment, and more and more and more people were brought into that environment, like we're hearing from the youth. Also similarly with the ladies. Obviously Yamuna was a lady, and I can say that in her experiences, she had the best of Krishna consciousness, and she also had to experience some of the hardest aspects of Krishna consciousness being in that situation. And when I took up the women's ministry, it was for 4 people, very specifically for 4 people. It was for Yamuna, it was for Dina, it was for Vishaka, and it was for Pranada. And in that time, it was a very difficult service. It was not an easy thing to do. It's not a way to win a popularity contest. I can guarantee you of that. And in that time, I had to go through a lot of experiences. And the one person out of everybody that I could just, at the end of the day, oh my goodness, she just had this way she could take everything away and make everything okay. And I knew that she was so grateful because this was something that she really wanted to see done. And at the time, it wasn't something that she was ready to do. But she wanted it done, and she was so grateful that we were doing it. And so all of her affection, all of her love, it just poured out, and it just made everything so much simpler being in her company. No matter how hard it was, no matter who, when she was here and she was speaking and some devotees confronted her in the temple room, she handled it with so much grace. She didn't mind to come again and again and support everything that was going on. But what was the women's ministry? What was the effort? Really, at the end of the day, what was that for her? Was it about being a woman or a man? Of course not. It was about the association of devotees and how we have to see past all of these different designations, see into the heart and the soul of the devotee, as you heard that she genuinely did, and actually appreciate and value each other in those ways. So very quickly, she gave a presentation in 2000 to the GBC body. I'm not going to read the whole presentation. I'm just going to read a couple paragraphs. And excuse me, I just haven't been able to come up here. She talks about how she wouldn't have come to the movement if Prabhupada hadn't let her. She was very independent, and if he hadn't had that broad-minded view and brought her in the way that he did, she would never have come to Krishna consciousness. She talks about that. And at the end she says, Srila Prabhupada trained me to be concerned about his movement, and at this time I am deeply concerned. Now more than ever it is time to revive and imbibe Srila Prabhupada's mood with his disciples. If we neglect this, an aspect of his greatness will remain unknown to future generations. I appeal to the GBC that along with the laudable projects you are managing and those you are contemplating, especially that magnificent temple that will arise here in Sri Mayapur, consider that the behavior of the ISKCON devotees who participate in these projects must also be magnificent. Any other behavior will make the projects less than worthy of Srila Prabhupada's name. This grave responsibility falls on you. In other words, let us instill in every person who comes into contact with Srila Prabhupada's movement the healthy spiritual relationships that he had with his followers, his mood of encouragement, protection, and kindness. The closer we come to individually appreciating and honor Srila Prabhupada's personal dealings, the closer we will come to a sense of completeness in Krishna consciousness, to his joyfulness, to his transcendently attractive nature. With great care, our service is to create a devotional environment where men, women, and children can thrive in Krishna consciousness, rendering service according to their desire and inclination. Our service is to empower rather than inhibit the service propensity in others. Finally, let us search our intelligence and hearts for ways to help the women who are sincerely looking for spiritual life. Without properly nurturing them, we as a society have no future. Women in Krishna consciousness are an intricate, essential part of Srila Prabhupada's legacy. In our effort to move forward, let us not put Srila Prabhupada's example behind us, but in front of us, our divine beacon, to guide us together towards the lotus feet of Shri Shri Gaur Nitai and Shri Shri Radha Krishna. And just as a small note, somebody was just telling me this, I hope I get this right, because accuracy is very important to you, Muna, but my understanding was that just recently Giri Raj Swami asked her if there was something else that you were going to do if you had, more time to do your next service, what would that be? And she said that I would work for the women in the movement. So. All right. Okay, so Malati? Shruti Rupa. Okay, are we ready?
On the phone?
On the phone. She told me to go to you.
Someone has to hold the mic next to the phone. Which phone is she on?
Harguja, how much time did you want? 1 minute. Come on up while we're waiting for Shruti. I think they're doing it, though.
Shelley is with us.
Oh, Shelley's with us.
Shelley is with us.
How's that?
That's better.
Is there a picture? Oh, it's working. I wasn't sure if it was working or not.
Just turn off the sound on Krishna.com and just speak to us.
Oh, all right. Hold on.
Close that window.
Yeah, different page.
Just close the window.
I think I've done it.
Okay.
Is that correct now?
Yeah, just start talking to us.
Oh, okay. Hare Krishna Prabhus. I wasn't sure if this was working. I got a call. So anyway, I'm so grateful to be included in this memories of Yamuna and this wonderful memorial. I've been watching it, and my heart is breaking. And at the same time, I'm inspired once again by her amazing presence. I first met Yamuna in October of 1970 when I was asked to go to India, when we first went to India. And Yamuna Devi was like a big sister and a mentor to me. She took me under her wing, as I've heard so many other devotees say. She definitely felt, I was 10 years younger than her, and she was going to take care of me. And right after Bombay, we were invited to this amazing Pandu program in Ritsar. And Yamuna and I were the only women that were there. And I've heard so many devotees say this mood of protection. Well, Prabhupada, because we were the only two girls there, he made sure we were taken very good care of. Our accommodations in Amritsar, we had 2 rooms, and Prabhupada took one room, and Yamuna and I took the other room, and the men slept out in the courtyard. And it was very, very cold. It was in the winter. I think it must have been in October or possibly November. Prabhupada had been invited to a sadhu satsang. And he always made sure that we were next to him. On any engagements we were brought on, Prabhupada would, where is Kushalia and Yamuna? They must ride with me. We rode in the car with them, and all the men would take the rickshaws. And, they would send a car, and we would ride in the back. And one time, we were on our way to an engagement, and this is one of my favorite memories of Yamuna. Prabhupada said, I need new shoes. And Yamuna said, let's stop at the next Bata shoe store and buy some. So we did. And Yamuna and I got out, and Prabhupada got out and sat in the chair, and he told Yamuna and I to find the shoes for him. So we selected these plastic Bata shoes with a little crisscross. And I took one shoe to him, and she took another shoe to him. We put them at his feet. And Yamuna said, Srila Prabhupada, these are for your wonderful lotus feet. And he smiled and tried them on, and we bought the shoes. He loved them. It was one of those very intimate moments that I felt like, Yamuna taught me how to be close to Prabhupada in that way. And another time, Prabhupada would have either Yamuna or myself tent at his convent ground. We would have sleep time, sing bhajans. And we were singing and we were trading verses. I think we were singing Samsara prayers. I don't remember exactly what. But after it was over, as
gentleman, an Indian gentleman, got up and criticized our Sanskrit pronunciation. Said it was not perfect. Girls should not be allowed to sing. They cannot make perfect translation, pronunciation. And Prabhupada got so mad, and so he yelled at the fellow. He, told him that these two women have more love in their heart and more bhakti than you will ever know in their lifetime. and he made the man sit down and shrink into a tiny little ball. So amazing. And I'm sure many people, have talked over this course of the evening about Yamuna's cooking. Well, I had an amazing experience with Yamuna cooking for Srila Prabhupada. We were on the train on our way back to, actually it was on our way to Delhi. And Prabhupada called, Gurudas was in the compartment with Srila Prabhupada, and Yamuna and I were in, yes?
Yamuna told us this story a little bit earlier this evening.
Oh, okay, I won't tell that story then. It was amazing. It was amazing. And one of the other things that a lot of people have said that I experienced personally is how much she encouraged you. And I was a very, I joined the movement in 1969, January 1969. I was initiated. I met Prabhupada in 68. So I was a much younger devotee than Yamuna. And she told me, we were singing mantras together, and I learned to sing the Sri Sopanishad. And it was because of Yamuna that I learned. She encouraged me. We were living in Surat at the time. And she encouraged me to learn it. And so then she said, you have to go tell Srila Prabhupada that you've learned it. So I did. And when we were at an engagement, Prabhupada had me sing it to all of the people there. And it was pretty amazing because he was beaming. He was so pleased. And it's all because of Yamuna, because she kept encouraging me to learn and to tell Prabhupada I had learned. Again, she was one of those people that encouraged everyone. And when we were in Surat, we did all these street sankirtans, and Yamuna and I developed this wonderful little dance that we did. We would pirouette in and out of each other's dancing all the way through the streets of Surat. And it was a wonderful experience to dance with Yamuna because she was in constant ecstasy. Another really amazing memory I was thinking about Yamuna last night is when we went to the Kumbh Mela in 1971 with Srila Prabhupada. Yamuna and I had decided that we would get up early in the morning. Prabhupada had just told us the story of, how the nectar is dropped at this specific spot, this specific time. So we got up in the middle of the night. I mean, it must have been like 3 or 4 in the morning, something like that. It was still dark out and very cold. And we were determined to get into the river before everyone else at the auspicious moment when the nectar was dropped on that spot. So we went in and we were singing bhajans. We were singing, just the two of us, and it was very quiet. It was dark. The water was freezing, and we were ignoring that and singing bhajans together. And then suddenly, over a loudspeaker, someone said in Hindi, "The saints are coming." And then we looked up the hillside, and there was 100 or so Naga Swamis and matted hair, holding tridents, naked men towards us. I've never seen 2 women move faster than we moved. But there are so many memories of Yamuna, and all I can say is that she was an inspiration to me, a mentor to me. I feel very grateful and blessed that I had so much time and friendship with her. And of course, she will be very, very greatly missed by all of us.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you.
Okay, so is she coming up, or do you have a minute for her? Okay. All right, push it.
So during that time in India, when Kaushalya, her husband Madhavananda, Yamuna and Gurudas were there, Gurudas was the temple president. It was 1973. And they were very influential in the time when Prabhupada was trying to get the temple built, because every year something else kept happening and the temple wasn't being completed. And they were living, Yamuna and Gurudas were living in Radha Damodar Temple above Srila Prabhupada's quarters that we know today, that are downstairs. And when my husband and I came to visit Vrindavan in 1973, we had been living on the Calcutta Mayapur side, and we went to Vrindavan. Yamuna took us in and gave us the room next to her upstairs on the roof, second floor, and she would cook out on the cement roof, you know, the Vrindavan roofs. She had one little burner gas stove, and she would squat down and cook a little meal in one pot. And meanwhile, while she's cooking, the monkey is trying to sneak into her room to grab some of the cooking items, and they often were successful because we couldn't keep them away. And she was just so at home in Vrindavan. And she took us on Julian Yatra time. She took us to all the temples of Vrindavan for swinging the deities. And her and Kaushalya, we would just walk in and sit down as if we had been there many, many times. And she made us feel so at home, and it was our first visit to Vrindavan, and she would sit and they would sing beautiful bhajans. And my husband and I, of course, that was our first trip to Vrindavan, so Yamuna was our mentor in Vrindavan. And I'll just tell one quick story, because there's a part that not too many people mention. It's her feisty part. We went to the Varshana temple, which you know is up many, many, many steps, and we walked all the way up there, and there were Kaushalya, her husband, Mami and my husband, and Yamuna and Gurudas, and we went and had darshan of Radha Krishna there, and Yamuna took a picture. And as soon as she took the picture, the gates of heaven opened, and the pundits started to get all nervous, and they were scuffling around trying to think of what to do, but Yamuna knew immediately that a battle was going to pursue, and she said, "Let's run." So we all started running, and she said, "I'll run in the front, and I'll get to the bottom of the hill first, but before I get there, make sure you get the camera to me." So the last person had to talk to the pandit, and then he snuck the camera to Madhavananda, and then Madhavananda talked to the pundit. "Oh no, I've not seen the camera, I haven't seen the film." They were literally grabbing the men by the arm and forcibly wanting to take this camera. So we were running and talking and trying to convince these pundits that we didn't have the camera. And through all 6 of us, we managed to get the camera to Yamuna, who was in the front of the line, and she hid it under her sari. And by the time she got to the bottom of the hill and the pundits all came to the battlefield for the final stand, Yamuna convinced them that we had no idea where the camera was. So I think those were the very first pictures smuggled from a deity temple in Vrindavan. And I just wanted to say that the legacy that Yamuna left, I know many of you have mentioned it, but for me, the legacy that she has left is that Srila Prabhupada comes first in every single thought and activity. She never did anything without realizing that Srila Prabhupada was the source of her even being able to perform that service. So I feel that that is her legacy.
Okay, so we have 2 people ready to go. I got Shruti on the phone and Shama Sundar on Skype. So how are we doing this, Pranada?
Shama Sundar, start with Shama Sundar.
Okay, Shama Sundar, go. I go.
We have to go. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. everybody. So nice to see you all hearing these wonderful things about our beloved Yamuna.
He's got it on too.
I guess next to Janaki, that I've known Yamuna longer than any other devotee, and many of my fondest memories. You hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Many of my fondest memories are those very earliest times. Hold on. Volume.
Close off Krishna.com.
Yeah, you have to close the Krishna.com window. So you don't have to close the Krishna.com window.
I have to go back 56 years. 1955. We were both 13 years old. At Paul Junior High in Oregon. And it was in a homeroom. That's in a class that you study for other purposes. A new girl came to the room named Joan Oslin, and she sat directly in front of me at an empty desk.
You there?
And of course, it's very quiet while you're studying. I couldn't, because this black pigtail fell down on my desk, and I simply had to grab it and pull it. I'm gonna read. I pulled it again. I pulled it very hard, and she squealed. And the teacher looked at her and reprimanded her. So from that day on, came sort of special friends. And we were joined by a very unusual type of humor. She was Yamuna and I, to this day, have a very humorous relationship. She has been, for 56 years, foil of my antics. If she approved, especially if I could make her laugh, that was my purpose in life, last 56 years. Sometimes I would make her laugh by being a little off color, and then watch her hide her eyes, and then lower her head and cover her eyes with her hands, and shake with laugh. So I would relentlessly drive it, and drive it so hard that she would run from the room laughing and giggling down the hall. Then I had something right. You know this, Yamuna? Maybe some of you do. So, humor. That's what Yamuna is trying to really develop a very special relationship as spiritual pals. Well, first we went to the sock hop together, danced in the gym, went to the hay rides, listened to all this breakfast together. But we were, from the very beginning, special spiritual pals. Not boyfriend and girlfriend in the normal sense. We started talking about books, the meaning of life, and then poetry, gradually jazz. And for the next 10 years, she was my special friend